Well, hello, pricks. And I say that with the utmost respect. But everybody keeps asking me for more maintenance, more how-to videos. So my response to all them was, it's good if I'm not making them because that means nothing's breaking. And that's what I like. But I said pricks because thanks for jinxing me. Walker MT. And you see that wonderful little mess? All that stuff in there. This here, if you guys remember, I hit something. I can't remember what the heck I hit. There's the old one. And I separated it. See? I shattered it right there. You can see how it's, if you can see that. See all that? And I busted that, and I gone to my dealer, and they didn't have one, the one I needed. So they gave me one they had that was like, they rebuild them. And so one that they had that was sitting on the shelf, and the guy that was working there, because the owner wasn't there at the time, he was in Florida, he gave me one that he had, and he said, I don't know how good it is or if it even is any good, but it's the same kind, so try it out. Well, it had issues. It was missing the bottom plate off it, so I took the bottom plate off of this one and put it on that one. The top, somebody had it off before, and they had put it back on and resealed it. I'll show you in a minute when I pull this cover off what I'm talking about. But so I was skeptical of it, but it did work, and it got me through. It got me through the last month, 3 weeks to a month of spring. But ever since then, it's been leaking, and I've just been keeping an eye on it, milking it through. You guys know I didn't use this mower that much over the summer, so I've just been milking it and putting it off and putting it off. And that one over there is the original one. You guys know I replaced this deck like a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. So this is the old gearbox assembly off the original deck. And that one over there has been loose for a while. The gears are loose inside. So what I did is I ordered 2 brand new gearboxes. One for this side, one for that side. The center one is good right now. I might order that down the road, but it ended up being with shipping and everything. It came to $387 for both of them. They'll be here tomorrow. They're usually over $400, and they're not cheap knockoffs. They are OEM parts. I got them from a Walker dealer. I can't remember what state he's in, but they are OEM parts. This is what I was talking about, how I knew somebody had a part before. You see that white epoxy that's like a white sealer? See me pulling it down right there? It goes around the cap. Somebody's had this off, and you see white sealer in there, and they never put that bolt back in, so it only had the 3 in it. That one hasn't been in there since I got it, but that part never did leak, I don't believe. There's Billy.
Hello.
See this guy? This is Jacob. This is our little buddy that lives across the street. Say hi, Jacob. You said you want to be in a YouTube video? You're going to be in a YouTube video. Jacob is a boxer, right? Jacob does boxing. This is Jacob. Jacob's our guy. And he's a Yankees fan, so that makes him even better. So now that that's off, here's the assembly. This is where it leaks. They all leak around there. I always have a problem with those leaking. Let me see. I know I got one of them seals. This is the seal that goes in there. It's like a P001 or P002, whatever it is, P003, I don't know. But that's what goes in there, these little paper gaskets. What I'm going to try to do this time, I'm not going to put those paper gaskets in there because they never seem to work for me. This one here, there's RTV sealer in there. I've never touched that one. I've never had an issue. It's always been this one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use Gear Oil RTV gasket maker. That's the stuff I use when I flush out the rear end on like the dually or any of my trucks, and I put the pan back on. I use that. Never had a leak on any of them. So when I put these back together with the new ones, I'm going to seal them with the RTV sealer. The thing is, a lot of people, these bolts here, they're all 7/16 bolts, okay? These bolts that screw in, they screw in and they're very easy to strip out. You just got to get them nice and snug, and that's it. That's all you do with them. So a lot of times people strip those out, and then that becomes a problem, but you just got to be careful when you do those bolts. So I'm going to pull this gearbox off, and I'm going to pull this gearbox off, and I'm going to drain the fluid out, and it's going to sit here until the new ones come in tomorrow. See, now on this one, there's some type of rubber gasket on there instead of the paper. See that rubber gasket? I don't really know what that's all about, unless that's the way it's supposed to be right from the factory, and they use the rubber gasket instead of the paper one. But I definitely like the idea of the rubber one better, but that's how the rubber one is. And the rubber one, it looks like it, I don't know about that center piece. There's a center rubber piece in there too, but that is that gearbox. That one is still good. Like I said, it felt a little loose when it was on there and the blade was on there, but it didn't feel too bad. So that's what there's a sleeve here that slides right out, and you got to make sure you don't lose any of those parts. So now I'm going to do the same thing to the other side, and we'll get all the fluid. The fluid runs through. So when you fill, that's a common misconception. People will take, when they check them to see if your fluid is up to where it's supposed to be, they take that little plug out and they fill it through there, and then they take the plug out on the opposite side and fill it through that one as well. What some people don't know is this tube is hollow all the way through. So when you fill one, it goes all the way through to the other one, and it fills all three at the same time. It'll self-level, and that's how people end up getting too much fluid put in there. Now that both of them are off, there's a shaft that goes through, and it has a sleeve on each end, and you need to make sure that both of those are in there. They will, when you tip it up, they will fall out. The sleeve and the shaft will fall out of both ends. So you got to make sure that the sleeve is down in there, that goes on the little piece of shaft that sticks out of here. It looks like this, okay? It'll have a gear on each end, or like it's toothed, okay? And you got to make sure this goes into, in this end down here, there's the tooth area that comes out each side, okay? And it has a sleeve about that long that goes over top of that. And then the shaft goes through here and goes into that sleeve. Then on this end, there's another sleeve. And this end of that shaft goes into there, and it leaves an opening in the sleeve long enough that slides right over top of this gear, and that's how they all connect. If you tip this either way, they all fall out, and so you got to work them back in there. So now that those are off, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get these ends cleaned up, the ends on both of these here, and then I will have it ready to go for RTV sealer, so that I can put it back together once the new ones come on and just bolt them back in. So I figured while I'm doing this, I might as well show you guys what the inside of one of these looks like. This is the one that I had down the bucket that I busted all the bottom off of. If I can show you. Yeah, you see that? See how it's split right in half there? It's cracked. I figured I'd show you guys. I took the screws out of it, popped this lid off. And that's what it looks like inside there. There's the bottom part of the plug where the plug screws in. Okay. And then you have your gears right in there. See all those metal shavings in there? Look at that. Watch. Oh, sticking everything. See? There's a piece. That's one of the teeth that's supposed to be right there. It's all magnet, so it's turning, but it's supposed to be right there. So here's the deal. Here's a used one I got from my dealer that kept leaking. This is the shaft that was down inside there, okay? And this shaft had play, and it moved, and this bearing kept moving. Now, the one that was on my machine originally, that I sheared that off, the whole bottom half of the casing, I pulled that apart to see what kind of spare parts I could keep out of it. This is the one that was in there. You see the difference between these two? Let me see if I can show you. See that sleeve right there? There's a sleeve that goes there. So when this bottoms out down on that gear, down in there, the bearing sits right in there, and it allows nothing to move. This one that was in this spare parts one I got from my dealer to get me out of a bind doesn't have this sleeve. It's supposed to have that sleeve. So I'm going to take that one out of mine that I sheared, and I'm going to put it back in here. That way this one will be complete. All the teeth in there, everything are good, everything's solid, no issues. Now without that piece in there, maybe you see that moving in there? I don't know how well you guys can see that. I'm hoping that you can. I'm gonna turn from here where the blade goes on and watch. See how the gears are turning? Well, that's what it does when the drive shaft turns that shaft in there, which connects to this end of it, okay, which sticks out right here. It all connects, and so as that drive shaft's turning, it's turning the gears in there, and it turns this shaft, which is connected to them gears, which makes them rotate just like that. And as they rotate, it spins this end for the blade. Okay, what I did was I cleaned this pan out so I have a clean area to work with. Whenever you're working with gear oil or hydraulic oil, you really don't want to get anything in it. Hydraulic is worse. Like the hydros on your mowers, you want to have them absolutely clean before you take the caps off to add any fluid or check fluid. You should always make sure that area is perfectly clean. I know for most it goes without saying, but it's very, very important. So I cleaned the pan out real good, and then I started doing the ends of these. I blew all the gunk out of here with an air gun so that nothing would go in there. There's just a little bit of oil left there. It's no big deal. What I did is I have like this Scotch-Brite stuff, this Brillo stuff. It does really good for cleaning, but it won't damage or take any metal away. So I went at both of the ends all the way around. I used this little pick here to dig out of the holes any chunks of gasket maker that was in there. It appears there was some on both ends. So I did that, and then I went over it with the Brillo pads, or with that Scotch-Brite pad there, and clean both ends up. So now it's good to go, and it's ready for those new gearboxes when they get here. Okay, so this package came in today. I believe that this is the new pumps. Not pumps, the new gearboxes. We will find out here in a second. Yes, it is. Oh. Here is one of the new ones. They do not come with those plates on there, which is this plate right here. It sits on there, and you put the 3 screws in it. For some reason, they don't come with these plates. I don't know why. I only have one of them because the other one's missing one, but there's one of them. There's the other one. And they're both the same. They're both the same part number. And it's the same gearbox for each one. I checked it first. I thought maybe one would be one part number, the other one would be another part number, and they'd be different, but according to my manual, they are not. They are the same. So 5053-1 gearbox right rotation. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make sure this is dry and there's no gear oil sitting in here, but I am going to see, I just tipped it up and the gear slid out the other end. I want to make sure there's nothing on here that's going to get in the way, and I'm going to put some of this gear oil RTV gasket maker on here, and poke a hole in here because I haven't used this in a while and that stuff is hardened up.
around it. Same thing on this one, because that's how the paper gaskets that you put on here, that's how they go. They go right around those bolt holes. So I want to do the same thing with this stuff. Make sure there's plenty in there. Not worried about having too much in there. I mean, you don't want huge gobs of it, but I'm not too worried about having too much in there, because once I put that piece on, it'll just, and I tighten it down, it's just going to press the rest of it out anyway. So I'm going to let this set up for a minute, and then I'm going to put it on there. Okay, the other thing is, the side that I'd never taken off before has these lock washers on it. The side that I did take off didn't have any, and I had just put them back on when I replaced that one the way they were. So I dug through my bin of nuts and bolts, and I found lock washers for all of them to make sure that they're all on there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put this one in here. You got to get these teeth lined up with the teeth that is in that sleeve I had explained to you about before. That's the big thing. And when you get it in there and you get it lined up, you start turning it, it's going to turn that end down there where your blade goes on. So that's a big thing that's very important, is you have to watch where that's at, because that's going to make a huge difference. Is I try to get the bottom two started first, because if you remember, that brace has to go on the top one. It has to go on the top two, so you have to, it's a lot harder to get those started and deal with that brace at the same time. Now this part is really important, and the first time I had ever switched gearboxes out before, I screwed this up and I had to pull it all apart again, and I had to redo everything. It was a nightmare. But anyway, once I put this side on, you have to make sure that this one here, see the notches in there where the cup for your blade goes on? The blades have to sit differently, like as you know on a walker. So I have to make sure that this one is in the opposite direction of that one. I put them, they will go in the same direction, and I've made that mistake before. So you have to make sure that they are different. They are different directions. You turn it, but then when you go to stick it in there in the splines, sometimes it doesn't line up exactly right, and you put it in, you kind of turn this thing to get it in there, and before you know it, it's screwed up. You look back and they're both the same, so you have to make sure they're different. It's very important. Back together, and it's the sealer starting to come out a little bit because I have it pressed together. I'll show you on this one here. See how the sealer came out when I tightened it up? It's starting to come out a little bit here. Now I'm going to snug these up. Remember, I said don't over tighten, you will strip these out. So there it is, all back together. You can see the sealer coming out a little bit, where when I tightened them up, it just pushed it out just a little bit there, which I'm happy with. But it is all back together. Now what I'll do is I'm going to leave it sit here. I got other running around to do. I got to go to the gym, stuff like that. So I have a couple hours, no big deal. I'm going to do my running around for a couple hours, and then I will come back and I will put it on the deck, and then I will fill the
hydros up with fluid, and we'll go over that. So did any of you guys catch that? I just came back out here in the garage and I wanted to check on this to see how well the sealer was, or the gasket maker was curing up, and I realized I put these on the wrong way. See how one side is longer than the other? Well, I had them on the opposite direction and they'd have never gone down in there. So I had to pop them off real quick, clean the sealer out of there, or the gasket maker out of there, and put more in there and put them back to, flip them around, put them back together. That's crazy. See, I was sitting here trying to record this stuff for you guys, and I just wasn't paying attention enough. That's how quick and easy you can make a mistake, and you got to rip it apart without being under camera. I was able to tear the whole thing down and put it back together in like 5 minutes, really quick, because I've done it so many times. But that's the kind of thing you can run into if you're not paying attention. Okay, so I just got back from the gym. This has been setting up for about 3 hours. It's a little pliable, but no big deal. I don't think there's going to be any issues there, so we're going to get this thing locked back in here and go from there. Got it bolted back in there. It's just you have these tabs that are in there, and it's a bolt that runs through with a nut on the bottom. They're 9/16. There's one in the front, one in the back of both sides, and that's it. There's probably torque specs for that. I never do any kind of torque on any of that. I just I put it in there, and I hit it with that with the nut driver, and it gives it plenty of torque to tighten it down. So now I'm going to hook this drive shaft back up in there, and then I will we'll get into adding fluid to these. Now what you can do, and what I've always done, is I take out those little caps there and I fill them through those holes, but it takes forever to do it that way. So I'm going to show you how the manual recommends you do these. You just got to be careful this gasket. You don't want to break that gasket. And that's what the inside of a new clean one looks like. You want to fill the fluid so that it just covers this shaft. Now, like I mentioned before, you got to remember this tube is hollow all the way through. So when you fill this one, you fill this one up, and then you just wait a few minutes. You got to be patient. Let it run all the way through, because it'll self-level through the whole system. And you only want to fill it to just over the top of this shaft. If you fill it too high, it doesn't leave room for the fluid to expand as it heats up, and then that's when you blow seals, and that's when you start having leaks. Okay, in the past, I have filled it up higher than that, and I've experienced that exact problem they recommend not to do. I will post the instructions and what they recommend as far as filling this, and what to use and how to do it right here. Okay, now that you guys saw that, I'm going to show you what I use. They recommend 80/90. Oh, my recommendation to you, if you have a walker, buy one of these. It'll save your life. Walkers have more grease fittings than any other mower on the market. And I greased the 3 different points on that drive shaft before I put it back in. It's the best way to do it. It's a pain to get to those ones, so it's just easiest to do it while it's out. You already have it out anyway. They recommend the 80/90 high pressure. Pretty much any gear oil is going to be high pressure. Okay, I know they have recommendations, and people will say, no, that's not true, but trust me, it is. I don't ever use any of that stuff in it. What I use is this. I use straight Lucas oil stabilizer. I've always used it. I know 100 different guys that use the same thing, never had an issue. That's what I put in all mine. I never put anything else. It's just a straight Lucas. And now you play the waiting game. I put about that much in, and I just let it sit for a few minutes, and it will drain all the way down through to the other one. I'm not going to pull this cap off the other side unless I can't see. What I'll do is I'll unscrew this eyelet from the other one. That eyelet right there, I will unscrew it from this one, and I will look down through there and see where it's at. And if it's full on that side to just covering that shaft and it's full on this one, then I know this one has the right amount, because obviously if it has to run all the way through and these two are at the right level, then obviously that one is too. But you can see all the bubbles rising up. That's because the air is escaping out and this is draining down and going through. It's already gone down about a quarter of an inch. So with it being a lot thicker than regular gear oil, it will take a little bit longer, but I will just leave it for about 10 minutes and I'll come back and check on it. Okay, so it's taken quite a while, but it's because I use this Lucas, which is a lot thicker than the regular gear oil, but the oil level is just above that shaft. They run sideways on both of them. So I got them where I want them to be, and now it's time to put these caps on. I did take that one off just because it made it easier to get the fluid in there and to watch both of them at the regular level. I don't suggest that you take those off if your gearboxes are old, because chances are these gaskets will be shot or they will rip, and then you'll have to replace them. These gearboxes are brand new, so I wasn't worried about them coming apart. It's not really that hard. It's more of a time-consuming thing, and with a little bit of like basic mechanical knowledge, you can do these. It's not really rebuilding the actual gears inside, but even if you had to, I've showed you how simple it is. I showed you how they work, how they're supposed to go together, and there's not even really that much in there that you have to worry about. So it actually is pretty easy to do. I know this was a long video and lengthy, but I wanted to make it as detailed and specific as I possibly could. I wanted to show you guys what these gearboxes do, how they work, what they look like inside, you know, everything. I didn't want to just be another basic video out there of swapping out a gearbox like pretty much everything that's out there right now, which they're very helpful. They're very handy if you're in a pinch and you just need to know real quick. But if you want to get more detailed into it, then that's what I wanted to do. That's what I wanted to give. So I hope this helps anybody out. And if it did help you out and you think, like me, that this is something that people really need to see or something needs to be more accessible to people, then please, by all means, share this video and get it out there.